Thanks so much for tuning into Behind the Masterpiece. I am your host, Brian Hersh, also the CEO for the Arts and Cultural Alliance of Sarasota County. And with us on Behind the Masterpiece today, brought to you by our friends at Visit Sarasota County, which you can always go to visitsarasota.com to catch this podcast and many others. We have the director of Naga Mandala, which is being produced by White Plume Productions. You can always go to whiteplume.org for more information. We have the director, Salil Singh. Salil, welcome to Behind the Masterpiece.
My great pleasure. Great to join you, Brian. Thank you.
Well, it's awesome to have you. I know I've already heard you talk about this piece a little bit and some events and some lead ups and things that are really exciting. White Plume is relatively new to Sarasota. And so all of these things that, this is Florida's cultural coast, so many entities. First, for those who don't know, tell us about White Plume Productions. Who and what is White Plume?
It's a nonprofit that is recently launched in Sarasota. The intent is to create a space where we tell stories, the stories that come from everywhere, then they connect with each other. They bring people together in a very internationally rich, culturally diverse community that is Sarasota, and to bring into being some of those stories that don't happen on their own, that requires a certain sort of organic chemical reaction between people from different cultures and sensibilities and artistic sensibilities that will combine together. So I launched White Plume as a nonprofit to bring people together who could work in a space that was created specifically for that purpose of cross-cultural storytelling, primarily through theater.
I love it. And so I often tell people, and you are absolutely living up to this, arts builds community. So I love how you're really launching this new organization to really continue to build bridges and bring people together. I'm obviously biased through arts and culture. So with that, Salil, I know you're launching and you've got this wonderful production. How did you select Naga Mandala by Girish Karnad, who happens to, if I'm not mistaken, one of India's most prolific playwrights in so many ways. So how did you come up with doing this production? What made you select this?
Right. So I have experience with this production. I'm a lifelong, theater, whatever you call it. Grew up in theater in India, was writing, directing from a very early age. Came to the U.S. primarily to pursue my training in theater and have stayed here ever since. So Naga Mandala is one of those plays that I came across at its U.S. premiere at the Guthrie Theater in
Oh,
Minneapolis.
wow. Yeah.
And at that time, I was living in Cincinnati as an actor puppeteer, directing a production with some graduate students at the University of Cincinnati. We all took this kind of a pilgrimage to Minneapolis. And I was absolutely stunned at just the power and the beauty and the inspirational quality of this writing. Girish Karnad is very iconic in India. He's that generation of playwrights who really set out to define what does a young country, post-colonial, have as its cultural identity. They were doing Shakespeare as if it was happening in Oxford and Cambridge, except it was transplanted onto the Indian stage. And then there was a kind of very ancient folksy drama of dance theater. Girish Karnad, who happened to be Oxford educated, um, found a way to work with this very deep, rich mythological material and folk tales and meld them into something very contemporary and powerful that questions, examines, and provokes our thinking about how we live here and now today. So it's that very beautiful blend of fantastical and viscerally real and contemporary that he manages to do as a playwright. So his status in India is tremendous as a filmmaker, film director, screenwriter, um, and the head of the National Film Institute for many years. But deep down, he always said, I'm a playwright who makes a living through film and television. And so he's very, very well known, but he chose to write in his native tongue, Kannada. one of the South Indian languages, but then also translated it into a very beautiful English version of it that we are performing. And so that is what drew me to Naga Mandala. I have directed it once with, I used to teach at a private high school in California. So these were teen actors who did it beautifully and amazingly, in my opinion. But they were young actors, and I have a very young cast, very inspired production. Here, I asked myself the question of all the plays I have directed, the 50 or 60 or who's keeping count, what calls to me one more time as a story that ought to be told to another generation of listeners and artists working on it together. And this is the one. This is the one that I said, yes, I would love to dive into it another time and discover where else it can take everyone.
Well, we're excited to see it and experience this. I know it's a premiere for Sarasota, so those are always exciting things. Tell us a little bit more about the story. So certainly you told us there's some mythical and folkloric elements, without giving an entire plot away, because I know that there are many twists and turns that I'm aware of while I don't know them specifically. What can you tell us about the story? What sort of characters are we gonna see and experience that are so mythical and folkloric?
Well, let's give you a teaser of the opening. There's a man who is a playwright who has been condemned to stay awake all night or he will die. That's his punishment for writing plays that have been putting audiences to sleep.
Oh boy.
Right? Just as he disavows all storytelling, all play acting, um, flames converge on this ruined space from everywhere. And they are personified as actors and dancers. And in this ruin of the soul, they start gossiping about what they have observed of human life. And within all of that is a character called Story Wrapped in Song. She is who we will stay with the rest of the evening. The playwright catches hold of Story's hand desperately and says, I will listen to you all night. Just make sure I don't fall asleep. So they have this pact, and this play within the play begins at that point. And that quickly takes us into a very magical, fantastical place where we will go deep into issues of, what is a man and woman's proper relationship and a marriage? How does a young woman fight for her own place and identity, pushing against the norms of the society that keeps her in some ways imprisoned literally and metaphorically. And let's throw in a little bit of magic in which transformations are possible between the magical and the human. And our set is a reflection of that as well. There is a side of magic, which is this banyan tree with its canopy and infinite dimensions of color and texture on a scrim, with musicians embedded inside the roots of the banyan. On the other side is the human world, where there is a hut that designates, us and our world and the town. And because it's in the circus space, I can talk about that with another question later on. There's a very unique way in which the audience can experience all that.
Naga Mandala. So sounds so intriguing. This performance that will be March 13th through the 15th at the Circus Arts Conservatory. And with that, Salil, staging something in the Circus Arts Conservatory in the Sailor Circus Arena is a very unique venue for a theatrical production. So, how are you bringing this creative vision together from the music and staging and performers? Because it seems really quite multidimensional.
Certainly. I like to think of it as theater that's happening all around and above us as well. It's like we're truly immersed in the experience. It all began with a conception of let's have the play happen between the audience, put the audience on two sides looking into a space, which then becomes the playing space where the entire story is taking place. And the audience is gathered in some ways to witness and to pass judgment on what the characters are doing. The moment it became that kind of a configuration, I began hunting for that kind of a space. And
Mm.
that's not easy.
Mm.
I knocked on many, many doors. I was even envisioning going to some kind of warehouse kind of place and trying to convert it into a theatrical space. And uh, thank heavens I did not go down that route. But I kept hearing, go to the circus arts. They're great people to work with. It might be what you're looking for. Lo and behold, I walk in and I'm blown away. I immediately saw the play happening there. And the first person I talked to over there, Brian Bernstein, their VP of events, the first conversation was not, who are you? Why did you sneak in here? It was, tell me what all you're trying to do. We could do this. Oh, we could also do that. Oh, there's a way to do this. Who are you, by the way? I'm going, you realize how refreshing it is to walk into a place like this and to be welcomed with ideas and possibilities instead of roadblocks and take a turn and wait. And that was, it told me something was absolutely right about it. And the moment I then saw it's a circus space and it has this very vertical dimension to it, all kinds of things started popping up that could be true aesthetically within the context of the story. So this is where circus is meeting theater, and the audience is gathering around it in a way that simply doesn't have some of the structures and barriers of traditional proscenium staging, or it is very unique. And the audience on two sides, performers in the middle, very challenging, but also very dynamic and exciting.
Sounds incredibly exciting and love that. Almost literally and metaphorically being welcomed into the tent, right, with our circus legacy, which our Circus Arts Conservatory really paves the way for recognizing Sarasota's cultural identity. So, what a perfect sort of way to launch something. Love this. Salil, since you've directed, something like this before, this play before, not necessarily this exact production, because every production is unique. You're in rehearsal right now as we open on March 13th, and this is around from the 13th to the 15th. What new discoveries are you having about this piece? And this is really, so it's not just theater. There is music, there is movement. There's really quite a lot of there's a lot through this. So what new discoveries are you having in this rehearsal process?
Right. So, first of all, it's my first time really working with a cast that's like this. It's a really awesome blend of teenagers who have done a decade of Indian classical dance with adult local Sarasotans who are veterans of Broadway and musical theater and have lived and grown here. And then actors who have come from out of state, from Georgia, through an audition process that I conducted on Zoom, a whole new world of theater and casting that I never encountered before, because I worked in my own theater with, basically actors who were right there. And then to bring all these people together, and a huge act of trust between all of them, right? These Georgians migrated to Sarasota for 2 months, gave that kind of time and commitment because they were that intrigued with the play. And here they are. One of them comes from circus and aerial and also music theater and ballet and theater and film. It's like the multi-talented dimension of it is just amazing. So these are people I've absolutely loved working with, and they're working at a level that is thrilling. I have familiarity with the play, but we make discoveries. A truly great work, I feel, is something that exhausts you, but you're so glad to have lived with it for so long because it fulfills you at the same time, and it never ends what you can find in it. This is one of those plays, I truly believe. But above all, Brian, it's a play that celebrates the act of storytelling as a most fundamental thing that we can do as humans to keep our minds, our aspirations, our lives, are pulled forward by what stories give us as human beings. So it's a celebration of storytelling as a fundamental act of living as human beings, which is what I keep coming back to. And that's what we're doing. We are keeping the story of Naga Mandala, the play, alive one more time and hoping to give it to our audience in a beautiful way so that then they become the next iteration of that story, that it shall live, and it shall live in their memories and experiences, and it'll be carried forward.
Yeah, I love the poetry in this. Salil, a few more questions. What I'm really curious about, we started this interview about adding to the cultural landscape in Sarasota. Tell us a little bit more. How does something like this, as the aspirations for White Plume, really bringing this international and global feel to Sarasota, how does White Plume and how does Naga Mandala add to the cultural landscape here in Sarasota?
So I think experiencing Nagamandala is experiencing the possibility of what can happen when many, many creative people from many different backgrounds and cultures come together with the intention of collaborating and creating afresh. They needed simply a platform from which to launch that exploration. So in Nagamandala, there are people who are lifelong musicians, dancers, actors, designers. Many of the team members were born and grew up in India. Others who are of Indian descent, but they born and raised in Sarasota. You have a Brazilian musician, um, a violinist whose parents are Chinese and Caucasian. You have yours truly. And you have many local Sarasotans who are basically, American actors who have grown up in musical theater and Broadway. They're all collaborating. Then you have something like Nagamandala, which is a premiere. It's a first ever. I don't know if it's even been done in Florida before, leave alone Sarasota. Karnad, who is internationally acclaimed and is revered within India, but virtually unknown in Sarasota. So there's a whole sort of treasure trove that is being exposed to a local audience. But we do have a very global audience. It's well traveled, well lived, but here they can walk in and experience the world within a theater for an evening, for a couple of hours, without having to go anywhere except down the street. So all those things are wonderful in terms of how people have come together and will continue to come together around the production.
I love this. Always building community. So, Salil, let's get you out of here on this. So, what's next for White Plume? What's next with when you talk about this great connectivity and building community and this global feel after this production is over? Although there's still so much to do, what's next?
Hopefully, what's next is a space for a conversation with others who will see it, experience it, and will be inspired to think a little further and a little wider in terms of possibility. My role here is to show a possibility and point to a direction that others could take. I don't know how long it'll take me after I'm washed up on the shores after the production to dare to think of the next project. But that funny thing about stories being the fuel of the human soul, that's all to be discovered, and the space has been created. This is sort of the proof of concept of something that could happen, and I'm absolutely thrilled to see all the people that have come together for this already. And I go, why not others? Yet to be known, yet to be determined, but surely there's more out there that will continue to happen, inspired by our success here.
Surely there is. Salil Singh, the director of Naga Mandala of White Plume Productions, which is March 13th through the 15th at Circus Arts Conservatory in the Sailor Circus Arena. You can always go to whiteplume.org for more information. I'm your host, Brian Hersh, Behind the Masterpiece. You can always catch this episode and visit sarasota.com. Salil, thank you for being on Behind the Masterpiece.
My great pleasure, and thank you for welcoming me. Thank you, Reed. Thank you, Brian.
It's a pleasure indeed. All right, everyone. Until next time, we'll catch you later. Thanks for listening to this episode of Behind the Masterpiece, brought to you by Visit Sarasota County. For more and to hear this podcast, go to visitsarasota.com.